go. I hear you
There we go.
double this. It's awesome. We made it. Hello, guys. Welcome to our first ever Connectory live multi-streaming simultaneously through LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. I am Sue. I'm part of the Connectory team, and I am your host today. And I'm really excited to have here today one of our Connectory team members, Beth, which I'm going to introduce to you guys in just a minute. So the Connectory live stream series is a new feature that we want to do regularly to put a spotlight on our amazing Connectory members that we have here in the Chicago Connectory as well as around the world. And our members are doing a lot of great things, even though we're not seeing them all the time at the moment physically in our physical spaces. They're moving and shaking the world. So today I'm here with Beth Bond, who is head of city development at Bosch and one of our Connectory members. And she'll share a little bit more with us what she has been doing. For those that have met Beth before in person, she is a full bundle of energy and always up to something new and has a lot of creative ideas. So welcome to our first live stream.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm excited to be the guinea pig working so far. Looks great.
Thanks for doing this with us.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat a little bit about what I'm up to, and I know in the Connectory there's a couple of members that still come in, so a lot of goodness to come from this live series, and happy to be a first guest.
Sweet. Well, Beth, please introduce yourself to our viewers here and tell us a little bit more what you've been up to.
Cool. So Beth Bond, I have a heavy background in startup tech and have been working with Bosch for 3 years now in the urban mobility space. And so I think head of city development is such a kind of abstract title, but what I really get to do is play on a really cool space where we look at how cities move people and things. I think here in North America, everybody knows Bosch for really quality dishwashers and power tools. But the little known fact here in the States is that we're actually the world's largest automotive supplier. And so coming into this world of new mobility, there's really a lot of opportunity for Bosch as a parts and hardware and systems provider to really help move, pun intended, new mobility concepts that can create equity and access and sustainability in the new mobility ecosystem. So yeah, get to do a lot of really fun things to see how cities are looking at emerging priorities, and no better time than this year.
Nice. Oh, wow. I'm excited to have you here and hear a little bit more of the stories of what you have been doing in the topic. And I can just imagine how things have been changing for city development during a pandemic.
Yeah.
Before we go into details on that one, we actually be really curious about a couple of tips from yourself on like what's your tips and tricks like during the pandemic to like for like kind of remote working. And I want to share, Beth is actually a working mom and she has also 2 kids at home. So I'd love to hear some of your insights.
I think partner support is always, people talk to working moms all the time. And I think the number one thing we should call out is like, for those of us who are lucky enough to have them, supportive and incredible partners. So mine make sure that while I need to be plugged in, the kids are wrangled and we have our first grader e-learning in the bedroom. And, the mute button is a very valuable teammate this year. As we've got craziness happening around us, we can kind of pretend that it's not there. So mute the circus, so to speak. And I think just making sure, the work hours of 9 to 5 are really, it's an old world concept. So just making sure, if you can get an email done later and it's going to cause you less heartache and stress, then get the email done later. I think everybody a lot more understanding and compassion in this new working world that has family and crazy outside integrated into the 9 to 5. So just kind of take things as they come and don't stress too much.
So true. There's like I feel like barking dogs in the background. I actually have a colleague. I always hear birds. She's in Brazil. I hear birds in the background, and I'm like, wow, where are you? Like these great birds. Oh, like, and so that's kind of the new normal, and I feel like it's pretty much
Yep.
okay. So thanks for
Yep.
sharing the tips with us as a working mom. And I'm wondering, so the connector has been back open for a while, and how's that? Have you been back into Connectory, Beth? And how things in general, like downtown, the working environment, a lot of has changed in Chicago.
Yeah, I live, 3 blocks away from the mart. So I'm super close. And the Connectory has really been kind of a haven for me when I can get away from, our home and our kids and plug in. Man, it's just like entering a time warp where I feel like I can accomplish a week's worth of work in 6 hours. So it has been just such an incredible resource, the Connectory, and still being able to see a few of our, previous community members is a huge part of not feeling the social kind of isolation that happens with social distancing. So I
Right.
have been able to get into the Connectory, and it's been such a great resource.
That great. Yeah. And I'm so with you. Social distancing doesn't mean like we need to be social distanced. And I feel like digitally, we've been doing a lot with like Zoom. And we actually had also last week our Connectory community lunch here, which was really fun. A lot of people dialed in. We continue having new members, which we're really excited about too. And I feel like it's especially now and a really important time to like find community and like connect with each other and just explore new avenues and how to do that and how that looks like in the digital way. And so I'm glad you're feeling safe, still coming to the Connectory once in a while, and that it can be like a heaven where you get a lot of work actually done. So that's great to hear.
Yeah.
Thanks, Beth. Awesome. Well, let's go back a little bit to your activities as like head of city development. City development, there's so much with partners and collaboration, and we have to talk. And usually I know you would be, I'm always impressed how you make it to like even get like up to 2 meetings or more events in the city. And usually like, I know Beth is the person that's always all over and at every event, I feel like you have like
I'm
multiple
just
things.
nosy. Yeah, I come from a big family, so I want to know what everybody's doing because it all fits into, the beautiful puzzle. So figure out where
You
the
do.
pieces are.
That's great. Yeah, so now we can't go to all these networking events anymore, and I actually truly miss it as well. And for your work, like how has really COVID and 2020 been impacting your work, and also potentially what opportunities have raised it for your work as for city development?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely kind of accelerated the kind of pilot testing that cities are looking to do. I think there was, not sure if it was the head of the Colorado DOT, but there was some incredibly brilliant person who said, now is the time that as mobility directors, as heads of transportation departments, we can get shit done. Right
Mm,
now there are huge, public transit is seeing a huge decrease in ridership just because of, remote working and potential perception around public safety. But the public transit industry is really being held up by essential workforce, and it's
right.
really starting to shift a conversation around, is public transit a public utility, and should it be
Mm,
subsidized in different ways? Streets right now are not, for the past decade, we've really looked at congestion being one of the biggest issues, and that's not so much anymore. So how can
right.
we leverage the public way for a little bit of a different mode split? And how can we look at curbside management and all of the stakeholders that used to exist there, and look at that a little bit more dynamically in terms of who is being charged and at what rate and at what time and how are they zoned? And so right now a lot of things have changed, and I think that change will be lasting. But what's really cool is there is huge acceleration, huge incentive for kind of collaborative approach to innovation in mobility. So yeah, it's really cool to see partners come together. Some of the members within the Connectory City Tech Collaborative,
Mhm.
we work very closely with them on some solutions design around curbside management. I think they are digging into a huge opportunity with Millennium Park Garage and the innovation lab that they've set up there for kind of like hub to hub innovation models. And yeah, lots of stuff going on right now.
Sweet, awesome. I'm actually really excited to hear that also due to all the loopholes we had to jump and difficulties that for your work there is also a lot of positive aspects and lots of moving. And I very much agree with you. I feel like it has really, this situation has made us rethink on like how mobility looks like in a city or how we move. And I mean, the increase of sales and bikes this year has been outstanding. I mean, I had already a bike before, and Divi bike has been amazing. Like upgraded his opportunity, and
Yeah.
like the e-bikes, Divis that are along the way, like you can get around so much faster. And I feel like also it became much safer to bike in Chicago. Or at least let's say there's so much more awareness around it. I
Right.
remember 2011 when I moved here, people would tell me I'm crazy to get a bike through Chicago, and now it's like an okay thing to do. And I feel like this is just moving it even more forward. So,
Yeah.
well, talking about bikes, I actually Beth has I know you have a really cool bike story to share. Like earlier this year, we shared a post from you on the connectory because you had like the entire connector was full, not the entire,
Yeah.
but a good part of it was like full with like e-bikes.
Yeah.
With You had started up a really cool initiative partnering with Turn and B-Cycle. So that being said, there was actually a call to action from your side where you asked others, like, if you know anybody in the neighborhood, a community-based organization, kind of kicking off a community service, a distribution initiative like food delivery, PPE exchange, educational tours, healthcare, social visits. Please come and connect with Beth. And yeah, so I'd love to hear how things are going and how this all started with you and all your e-bike colleagues,
Yeah.
basically, all the mates,
Yeah.
e-bike mates.
Totally. I think as our team has looked at kind of like the emerging trends in mobility and what does a perfect city look like in terms of mobility patterns in 2030, some of our earliest indicators were that actually people wouldn't travel as much as things do, and things have been outpacing humans in travel for the 5-10 years. I mean, with the huge growth of e-commerce and food delivery companies like Grubhub and Uber Eats, I got to the airport one time and realized I didn't have my passport and ordered a Lyft to pick it up from my house for my husband and get it to me. And
Wow.
things actually travel at a far greater pace than humans do. And so in kind of a perfect world where we have equity and access to healthcare and jobs and education and food all within our hyper-local community, we don't need to travel as much. And so as we look at how things travel and how that can be sustainable, obviously, huge trucks taking up 2 spots in the roadway and, blocking bus lanes and bike lanes, not like the most ideal situation. And so as the pandemic hit and we started to see just a complete disruption to the way people are able to access fundamental resources, access jobs, access healthcare and education, as a parent, I kind of freaked out because I know that in Chicago public schools, we have 380,000 kids. And when schools shut down in March, that's 380,000 kids who all have varying dynamic needs, and some of which rely very heavily on breakfast, lunch, and dinner programs at school. And so, what do you do in the face of crisis is figure out what resources do you have access to and who might be able to leverage them. And at Bosch, we, in our urban mobility or in our BBM division, we produce e-bike components. So we make motors, batteries, electrical systems for the display on e-bikes. And I kind of reached out to some of our reps over on the e-bikes team and said, hey, would it be possible for us to deploy some e-cargo bikes? Some of e-bikes, there are differing speeds. That red Trek bike that we had in the connectory for so long
Right.
goes up to 30 miles an hour. Most class 1 vehicles go up to 20 miles an hour, but the e-cargo bikes, they can hold, 400 pounds, and that's without
Wow.
a trailer attached to them that gives them another 1,000 pounds, depending on the model. And so I said, could we deploy some across Chicago to community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, mutual aid societies, which were holding up the most resilient supply, making sure we're fed, making sure PPE was distributed. And very quickly, just the culture that we have within Bosch is, if you see a problem, let's figure out a solution and if we can power it. And so I got a lot of yeses really quick. And then our partners at Turn and B-Cycle, which, actually manufacture the bikes, they were very quick yeses as well. And so starting in end of May, early June, we deployed a few dozen e-cargo and e-bikes across the city of Chicago to um, you know, chambers of commerce and to community-based organizations that work with youth and just food delivery services. Just found an incredible number of use cases for how this more sustainable mode of delivery of essential resources could really take hold. And the fun part is, in addition to the bikes, it's not a packaged product, but Bosch also makes a transport data logger. It's a little asset tracker for, goods as they're
Yeah.
making their way
Yeah.
across the sea, and
Interesting.
outfitted some of those to bikes so that we could generate some more quantitative data around like road condition. Because the communities that we targeted are, South and West Side communities, which
Right.
again are standing up huge food distribution events and could really be empowered with a vehicle that they don't need to fill up with gas every week.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really cool to see kind of as we deployed them for essential resource distribution, the kind of use cases that then popped up that we were not anticipating whatsoever. And so yeah, it's been really an incredible program, and releasing a little bit of a series to document kind of what it looks like and why there's such a huge shift into e-bike or e-cargo bike delivery for last mile. And yeah, it's been really cool.
Wow. Well, I'm amazed. Thanks for starting this initiative, Beth, and like putting this all together. And then I remember you were sharing with me, like, kind of the first one were you as a pilot. You just kind of said, I'm home board, what we're going to do here. I'll go and take action.
Yeah, I took that red Trek bike, and that is a very fast bike. I will say you know, I almost hurt myself on that bike
Oh,
pretty badly, but I had to. Once you have an idea, you have to road test it. You have to
that's
validate it, and
true.
so
You're
uh,
MVP.
yeah, so we partnered with a bunch of organizations across the city just for our pilot runs to My Block, My Hood, My City. We did a few
Yep.
of their distribution events for PPE, social change. We were able to do some food distribution, Parents for Peace and Justice. So our pilot community members really helped really road test the model just to see if it was something that would work, and it did. So we were able to scale it.
Amazing. That's really awesome, Beth. I mean, this was a tough time, and I remember myself being at home, and I felt like I want to do something. I want to help with something. Like, you feel so helpless, and I love how to get action actually found to add something to do something that has really great value. I wonder, in all of your tours, like, have you can you remember like one moment or like a situation with a person where you said, oh, that was really touching to you, or that was kind of special moment?
Oh man, I mean, when you're talking about this kind of topic, like there's a huge amount of need that exists across all communities, but here in Chicago, we have a very large community.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, every time you pull up at a food distribution event, I mean, it's touching, but it's heartbreaking to know that there's like 1 in 4 families in our city that are
Wow.
facing food insecurity. Like there's a huge need, and going into the winter months, we
Oh,
don't
right.
anticipate that going down, especially, knowing that the administration we have before January has not made a huge focus in stimulus and aid packages to families. And so we anticipate need going up, not down. And so it's touching, but it's also, it's a crisis. And so we have to make sure that, as we find resources that we have access to, even if they don't serve us, find the right home for them.
Right. Wow. Yeah. These are like components you wouldn't even really think of what an e-bike can do for a community or a city,
Sure.
and even, I mean, it brings also some problems even more in a different way to a surface to a conversation. So um, amazing. Yeah. Thanks for doing that, and we're looking forward to hearing more about your e-bike activities and where the fleet is going to go on its mission. And so it's really interesting. Can you give us a little bit of outlook or any plans on what you guys are planning on doing next with the initiative?
Yeah, we have our e-bikes. So we had we had 1 dozen of the Turn GSD bikes, which are cargo heavy. So they hold 400
Hmm.
pounds. Burley sent us a few trailers that could hold an additional few hundred pounds. And so, those bikes were really dispatched for essential resource distribution.
Nice.
The e-bikes that we got from B-Cycle, they have a front load little basket on them.
Hmm.
But what was really surprising is the kind of application there is in e-bikes for community development. So some of the organizations that we've been working with there, Equiticity, Black United Fund of Illinois, Boxing Out Negativity, they
Wow.
have Northwest Side Housing Center, they
Hmm.
have e-bikes that they're actually just using for community services. So
Mm.
either social visits, educational programming. We have one organization that very specifically uses them for just community bike rides, because in areas where mobility and transportation have a connotation with trauma,
Oh,
roads have not been paved in certain parts of the city like they have on the north side, and that actually prevents people from being able to leverage bikes in the same
yeah.
sort of way. It's kind of insane the amount of community development that can occur when bikes are deployed. And, to an earlier point that you made,
Hmm.
bikes here in the States, e-bikes, you know, in Europe, our counterparts in big cities, they see actually almost 30% mode split
Right.
leveraging bikes. Here in the States, we are just at the tip of the iceberg with 3%. And so I think the bikes, the word known as toilet paper, kind of like the new product that you can't get because they're not stocking it on the shelves over
The
the
new gold
summer.
toilet paper.
Yeah, it's, bikes are the new toilet paper. But really, I think the demand that we started to see for bikes, just because again the streets became much safer because we
Yeah.
didn't have as many vehicles on them. The first pilot bike ride that I did to test out the model was my first time riding a bike in the city of Chicago.
Really?
Um, it was, yeah, I was
Wow,
a little
Beth.
terrified. I went all the way down to 72nd and Columbus, so it was nuts. It was down to Washington Park, and I was amazed at how comfortable I felt. The bike went really fast, and it kind of caught up with me on the last quarter mile of my journey. But um, yeah, it's been really cool to see how much of an uptick we've seen in bike activity here, because it does create healthier communities when you see your neighbors out on bikes. It makes you feel like you own the streets instead of, a four-wheeled vehicle kind of being the master of that domain. So yeah, I'm excited to see in 2021, especially here when the weather gets a little bit better, not
Yes.
only how people start using bikes for community development, but also last mile logistics players have some really big plans for that as well.
Yeah, and that's actually another topic I'm really curious about talk with you about. I mean, last mile delivery. Besides, I mean, now we're going back into like not complete shutdown, but we will not be able to eat in restaurants again. So all the uptake of like delivery for restaurants, and like I have actually Domino's right around the corner, and sometimes I chat with the delivery person, and he was like, it's been crazy. Like he's so busy, like really driving out food delivery. So that's just one example of like
Yep.
where the deliveries are in a huge uptick. And so I'm very excited for the topic, and I see huge chances there in like last mile delivery, and how it's going to shift and further development on this. But yeah, you have really great thoughts about this. I want to everybody that's watching point out Beth has started the article series on her own LinkedIn. So I'll go check out Beth's LinkedIn and be on the lookout for an article. One that's has been started as community-led last mile delivery, and their third part is going to be published soon as well. So Beth, I love for you to share a bit with our community your thoughts that you have been expressing in there, and what do you see in the topic of last mile delivery?
Yeah, I think so there was a city ordinance that was just passed here in Chicago, and it is very telling around not only what Chicago, but other huge metropolitan cities are looking at when really trying to create a safer roadway, enable last mile logistics players to help support that, because some of the biggest, Vision Zero conflicts we see are huge trucks that have very little visibility, and they're coming into urban areas and, accidentally hitting a pedestrian or a biker
Oh, yeah.
on the roadway. And so we just passed an ordinance here in Chicago that enables last mile logistics players like Amazon, like DHL, like UPS, FedEx, to utilize e-cargo bikes for delivery, not only on the streets, but in the bike paths. And so we do anticipate, not only here in Chicago, but New York, Houston, Miami, a lot of these logistics players to start dispatching e-cargo bikes with either big front or rear loading trailers so that they can start making those deliveries. And I think when a couple of the aldermen who were a little concerned that bikers would not enjoy those things in the bike paths asked for some public commentary, overwhelmingly people said, "Are you kidding? I would be so much more comfortable with a bike in front of me than, an 8-wheeled vehicle who can't even see behind itself."
Absolutely.
And
Agree.
so, yeah, I think it's like most things in big industry. When we see changes, I think it's very important that we understand how community can really be embedded into that kind of new system or operation. And certainly for e-cargo delivery or e-bike delivery, we need to figure out how, either for the courier positions, for the technical maintenance and support, we can start to build a pipeline for community members to be employed or be receive education for those new systems. Because certainly e-bike repair is an upskilled version of bike repair, and bike repair and maintenance is already a niche audience anyway. It's not like a lot of people go to school to learn how to do bike repair. It's something that you like because you like to ride bikes, so you learn how to fix them. And so as we come into e-bikes or e-vehicles, I think there's a huge opportunity to make sure that we are supporting talent pipeline development, and that can really start with community.
Interesting, super interesting aspect. I didn't even think about that, but it's so true. Like, talking as my own experience as a biker, you eventually have to step up your skills and like figure out and like how to change a wheel if needed, or if small things break down, or adjust a seat as a very basic one. And of course, you have to like have these skills need to go into e-bike, and like which obviously is going to be a little bit more complex. So thinking about a talent pipeline in this one as well. And I'm also excited to hear that Chicago is part of like being kind of on the forefront of this and has passed kind of paved the way for that to be possible. So I'm really looking forward to seeing more like the cargo deliveries around.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, we have such a crazy uptake on like Amazon Prime orders and everything. And I always try to like already bundle them when I order, because I feel bad for every person that has to come
You know what,
and
though?
deliver them.
If it doesn't cost us anything to not bundle them, we won't.
Right? Yeah. So if it's like more, that would be certainly a healthier way. So that's super cool. Well, thanks for sharing all of the insights, and I learned a lot about e-cargo and urban mobility today. I always very much enjoy talking with you about the topics, and you bring so much passion to the table for it. And I really believe we have an interesting future in everything in urban mobility, and especially around the e-bike. And there's a lot of more creative use cases that I think nobody really has thought about, and you brought one to the light.
Certainly empowered by my ability to leverage the Connectory to store the bikes before they hit the streets. So Connectory has a huge part of making sure that the initiative was started up. So I appreciate that as well.
Happy to help anytime. Thank you. So that's awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today, Beth, for our first live. So much fun. And I'm looking forward to hosting one of the next lives with further Connectory members. So for the audience, stay tuned. They'll pop up some information about it again. And other than that, it's a sunny day today. So whoever can, enjoy some sunshine and have a happy day.
Awesome. Sunny and 40.
Yeah, right. So good. Okay. Bye, guys.
Great one.